Currently, in the United States, over 10 million people are living with cancer and thousands more are affected. Cancer clinical trials help develop new therapies and drugs that can be used to further medicine and treat cancer.
In this segment, we're going to talk about what clinical trials can do, what they are, some common misconceptions, and why cancer patients should participate in these clinical trials.
Clinical trials are an important factor in finding new treatments and medicines for different types of cancer. They basically are the key to advancing the treatment of particular diseases.
Clinical trials are often called different things. Clinical trials, research protocols, treatment trials. So they may come up with a different name, but it's basically all the same thing. It's used in cancer, you can have all different types of trials. It doesn't have to be just cancer, but in cancer, it's to find a better treatment for cancer patients, but it's also sometimes used for better care, whether it be quality of life, whether it be a prevention trial. So there's different types of clinical trials, but that's basically what I see. You may be using a new drug, maybe a new approach to surgery or radiation. There's all kinds of different ways they can approach it.
Cancer clinical trials usually start with an idea that has worked well on animals. However, just because it works for animals does not mean it'll work for humans.
There are different phases of clinical trials. So the first phase is really meant to determine whether this is a safe treatment. And so you start out with very low doses and gradually escalate it and monitor the patient's response. And as long as it's not toxic to them or creates any problems to them, then it becomes an agent that you can actually test for biological activity. And then you move into that biological evaluation component.
Now we're going to talk about what clinical trials can do.
As a researcher, I've seen firsthand the results of cancer clinical trials in the elderly. Because clinical trials are set up in phases, it is possible for terminal cancer patients to participate in one particular phase of the trial. According to the New England Journal of Medicine, elderly patients are underrepresented in clinical trials. Only 25% of patients in cancer clinical trials are elderly, while 63% of the elderly have cancer. While it is impossible to expect that participating in clinical trial will cure terminal cancer, it is possible that the new treatment could help improve your quality of life. The research being done in your clinical trial could help create new treatments that could help thousands of people after you.
Many of today's commonly accepted treatments started out as clinical trials. For example, in the 1970s, doctors started noticing that aspirin could be a good treatment for those coming into the emergency room with a heart attack. Because of clinical trials involving thousands of participants, doctors found that aspirin can be a potentially life-saving drug.
Without participants in these clinical trials, there will be little to no advancement in the development of new techniques and medicines. Because of progress made for clinical trials, many people treated for cancer are now living longer.
On our next portion, we're going to talk about common misconceptions involved with clinical trials.
Well, probably one of the things that I've heard in the past, and I don't think I hear it quite as much now, is they don't want to be used as a guinea pig. I think that's one of the old thoughts about treatment trials or clinical research. So that's probably one thing that comes up. Another thing is they think, is it going to cost me anything? That may come up as well. Sometimes it's just fear, whether it's them or maybe a family member that's fearful. They've been bombarded with this diagnosis of cancer. They already have this big unknown future in front of them, and to approach something else that they know nothing about can put fear in them as well.
If you are interested in participating in a clinical trial, please talk to your doctor. Not everyone is eligible to participate due to many factors. People of all ages and stages of cancer are needed for trials. So don't think that your stage of the disease or age will automatically disqualify you from possible entrance into a trial.
Most people don't pay attention to clinical trials until they hear something bad about them on the news. Medical breakthroughs, the results of clinical trials, often make the news, but you don't usually hear about the clinical trials behind the successes. Being involved in a new trial not only has the potential to help you live longer, but also has the potential to help thousands of people after you. Imagine that your grandchild is diagnosed with the same cancer you have. Because of your help in participating in a clinical trial, a new drug or treatment could be discovered which could potentially help save your grandchild's life.